Question number 2, David Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Finance.
Order, order, order. The House needs to settle. I've asked David Bennett to deliver his question.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Finance. What steps is the government taking to improve early intervention in social services as part of responsible fiscal management?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the government believes that the effectiveness of public spending, not the size of it, is what matters for delivering New Zealanders the public services they deserve. We saw, for instance, up to 2008, when the previous government's social spending increased by 70% in the 5 years to 2008, but many social statistics were going backwards. So while we have lifted spending in health, education and justice, we are at the same time investing in systems that measure the impact of those dollars on people's lives. This will allow the government to concentrate resources on interventions that change lives, particularly for the long term.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, David Bennett.
What reports has he received showing how targeted early intervention can make the biggest difference for at-risk youth?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in the context of the discussion about investment and spending on further prison beds, earlier today the Ministry of Justice provided new figures on serious offending among youth. They report that over 2 years, 1,800 14 to 16-year-olds were dealt with by police for a serious offence. On average, each child had previous contact with the police 6 times and is expected to have contact a further 8 times. 82% of these children have been notified to SIF for care and protection matter, and 45% have already received some support for mental health issues. Our ability now to get detailed insights about individual young offenders will allow us to shape services more effectively to change the trajectories that these young New Zealanders are on, because they're negative.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, David Bennett.
How does the government's investment approach reveal the case for early intervention and help to lift the quality of public services?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the social investment works in the first place by simply showing to the policymakers and to frontline deliverers of service what happens with people if no intervention is made. We know that for some individuals, for instance, the government will spend over $1 million on them before they turn 35. So the government has said it is prepared to make targeted investments today to deliver better long-term social outcomes, but this system depends on increased information sharing among government agencies, but also changing our systems of delivering support to New Zealanders in need, because some of the ways we deliver it now makes it harder for them rather than easier.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, David Bennett.
What other innovations are on track to help improve public services?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the important innovations is being able to understand and identify those New Zealand families who can't find their way to our mainstream services. Most of our services are delivered through hospitals, schools, prisons, and actually most of the time people aren't sick, much of the time they're not at school, and too many of our most vulnerable families don't benefit from those well-funded universal services. The ability to share information among agencies is now giving us much better insight. For instance, a case I heard of the other day, what looked like a fairly unfortunate family violence case turned out to be a young woman with 85 serious injury reports, and no government agency was aware of the scale of misery and abuse in her life. Now they can act on it.
That's right, exactly right.
Supplementary question, Carmel Cipollone.
How can you reconcile his statement that the amount spent isn't a factor in the effectiveness of services with Shamabil Yaqub's statement in reference to National's investment approach that an investment approach can't work if there is no new money, no focus on every stage of life and is motivated by economic speak?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I think I disagree with every one of those statements. I'd invite him or any of the other columnists who opine on these matters to turn up at the front line and watch some of the innovations that are occurring, whether it's the family violence pilot in Christchurch or some of the fascinating changes going on in Gisborne, the South Auckland Investment Board, all of whom are reporting to us that better ways of working can make a huge impact. And sometimes more money is required, but it's not the fundamental requirement.
Question.